I wake up to the sound of sirens and my dad waking me up. Hey, Derek, come get out. We gotta go help out at the store. I'm like, what is going on? He said, the hurricane hitting. I don't have much driving experience, and here I am being one of the first ones on the road at age 15 and thinking our island is dead. It'll never come back to life. I hope my friends are alive. It's hard because I lost my mom, my dad, and my older brother in the span of 18 months. We're losing like way too many young people, especially young men and boys. And I think a lot of it is because I think men may be under some sort of fictitious pressure to like man up. But what does that mean? My daughter is just graduated with a degree in psychology, and I think a large part of it is because she wants to jump into the battle. Because for surviving family members, like I wouldn't want them to go through that. But I tell our family as well, now we cannot let that loss be in vain. We gotta live life to the fullest to honor them. I think for people, take preventative measures and take the time now to tell your mom and dad and your loved ones, I love you. If you get into a fight, try not to let it go on too long. Time is precious. Love like there's no tomorrow. Make sure the people that you love know that you love them. Nobody gonna remember the road you fixed. Nobody gonna remember if the parks was good when you was mayor. Over time, people only gonna remember how you made them feel and if they could trust you. We have to get back on path to be good role models and good examples and to have bold leadership that's willing to make those unpopular decisions and stand behind them to move this state and our people forward. And I feel like I would love to have the opportunity to be that person.
Greater Good Radio, connect, learn, heal, and grow, is brought to you by Brain Gain Hawaii, a boutique executive recruiting, career development, and coaching firm. Learn more at braingainhi.com. Welcome to Greater Good Radio. Today we're here with brother Derek Kawakami, the mayor of Kauai, running for LG.
Yeah.
So, man, I've been waiting a while for this conversation because during COVID, I had hooied up with my brother and Jeff Harris and Stacy Katakura, and we did these webinars for PPP loans, right? And helped, I think, in the thousands of companies basically get their PPP loans. The entire group's piece was, I think, over $1 million worth of pro bono, kind of donated time for lawyers and accountants and so on. But every time we were doing that, your name would always be popping up as the guy helping out, the guy doing stuff. And to me, it just seemed like there was never really any posturing. It was just kind of like, this is who I am. This is how we got to do them. So I'm just real happy that we could do this today.
Oh, I'm stoked too. Yeah. First ever podcast, so...
I kind of find that hard to believe because you're in the public eye and so on. You know what I mean?
Like, it's just, I'm trying to think. No, I haven't done a podcast. Yeah. I've done interviews. I've done, of course, my COVID-19 home movies, but never have I actually done a podcast, which is interesting because I actually really love watching podcasts. Like, I am like a YouTube fanatic. Like, I learn how to fix things off of YouTube, and then I like hearing people's stories, not so much like what they stand for or what company they work for, but I like to peel off that layer and just learn about, like, how did this guy grow up? Where did he grow up? Like, did he come from a traditional household? Like, what's his story?
So if you had to answer that, what would be your answer?
Like, man, I would say I had the childhood that kids dream of. And, I was born in Hilo. 1977, so spent my early days there. I got two older brothers, not way older. I don't.
So you went to Hilo High or?
Nah, no. I was like 4 or 5 when we moved.
Okay.
So my dad was a company man for J.C. Penney's, and he's got an interesting story too. He went off to the Army. Somewhere along the line, he met my mom, this girl from Julia Valley, deep in the country, and so this boy from Waimea, this girl from Julia Valley on Kauai, met each other.
Where did they meet?
I don't know, but all I know is back in the days, to get down to Julia, you had to drive through a series of old cane haul roads, and he apparently got lost but found my mom. I don't know how they met. According to my mom, he tried a few times. She was a song leader, you know. She was like the popular girl. And my dad was kind of dorky. I mean, I guess you could say he's handsome. When I look at his older pictures, I'm like, yeah, he was slim, tall. But just knowing him, he's like, my mom is Party Arlene. And my dad is like, he's funny in his own way, but he kind of like dry and vanilla. You know what I mean? So eventually, he went off to the army, went to USC. My mom was teaching up on the mainland already. She went off to a school, Western College in Colorado, became a school teacher. My mom was so poor. She had like 2 pairs of socks and just like deep in the snow, all pukas in her socks. Her mom used to work as a chambermaid at Cocoa Palms and Kauai Surf. My grandfather, he was a company man for Standard Oil. And they met. My 2 brothers were born in the mainland. And like I said, my dad was a company man for JCPenney. And I was born in Hilo. And at about 4 or 5, he got transferred out. I went to Mililani Uka, kindergarten, 1st grade. I still remember this teacher.
Oh, you moved to Oahu?
Yeah, Mrs. Elliott. And I remember that woman, and it's amazing because I must have been got to be only kindergarten or 1st grade. I think it was 1st grade, but I can just remember that she was the kindest person in my life. And looking back on it now, I think that's the impression I got, is that it doesn't take much to be remarkable in somebody's life just by being kind, you know.
If you had one memory of that teacher, what would the memory be?
It's just kind, just, you know, loving, like unconditional love. You know, I was Kolohe, you know, I was rascal. But I just remember her being soothing and gentle. Yeah. And redheaded Mrs. Elliott, if you're still around and you hear this, or if a family member hears this, or if anybody remembers me from Mililani Uka, which probably not, but Mrs. Elliott and all my teachers, but you made a difference in my life. Yeah. And I don't know what it is. There's no one memory I can think of. It's just I remember her, and when I think about her, I just think about like kindness, unconditional kindness and care.
And then how does that play into your life now?
Well, that's the kind of person I want to be. That's what I want to be remembered as. Somebody that just is, you know, kind when people are going through, you know, hard times, or just, you know, understanding, patient, you know. I think that's important, that what I remember about Mrs. Elliott is not like if she was a great teacher. For all I know, she could have like not taught me anything. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm sure she did. But all I can remember is that she was one of the kindest people I've ever met. And I've never forgotten that. And it's just weird how the memory bank works. And yeah, I think that's what's important. When people ask, like, what do you want to be remembered as? And it's simple. Just somebody that was genuine, sincere, never forgot where he came from, and was kind, you know, and helped pick me up when I was at my lowest. And, you know, it's a work in progress. I'm not always nice. You know, there's times where...
Well, nice and kind are different.
Well, yeah.
Nice and kind are different.
I agree. You know, kind and nice is... Yeah, I don't want to be Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
nice.
I can be assertive and firm,
different.
but, you know...
Because sometimes kind is not nice.
Oh, no. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It can be brutally honest. That's why. And then people will be like, oh, that wasn't nice. Yeah, it wasn't. But, you know, I care enough.
So what else can give us context from like your younger years,
man,
to who you are now?
So when I said the childhood that kids dream of, I mean, so in the 2nd grade, that is when we moved back home. And I say back home because our roots is all Kauai. My dad was born and raised in Waimea, deep in the west where the tall mountains grow. My mom, like I said, grew up in Hulia Valley. You know, amongst like what my grandma, you know, my grandfather did, they grew up the old way, like they had food all. They farmed, they fished. My grandma would like meet tourists at her job at Kauai Surf Cocoa Palms, take her on the little boat and do like little river tours. And they grew up like in the old way, you know, where the whole family came together. And so coming back to Kauai, I had an unsupervised, with guardrails, of course, I had rules, but like, you know, we could get on our bikes and just ride for, you know, as long as we wanted to, come back home before dark. Summer times, our parents would drop us off at Kalapaki, and we spend the whole day there. And then we would see our moms pulling up to the seawall, get out of the car, calling us in, and we're telling one more wave, one more wave. And, like it was still so raw and undeveloped in Lihue, where we have a Costco and where I even live right now. It was just cane haul road and cane fields, and it was country, which meant that as a child, you got all these cane haul roads where you don't have thousands of cars zooming by and nobody on cell phones. So it was safe, and it was back in a day where it took a village to raise a child, and there was a village to help raise children. You know what I mean? In our little neighborhood, like all the neighbors knew what kid belonged to what parent. I can still remember like my mom telling me, hey, go walk next door and ask for like 3 eggs and go bring them this, salt. So it was still like tight knit, and it still very much is. But I would say just being able to be a child with all of the distractions and the inundation of just information, and not like having the technology to constantly be like dialed in and wondering about what people think about you. And, it was, like I said, I think I may have been one of the last generation where most of the kids were outside more than they were indoors.
You can actually climb one tree.
Yeah, climbing
You know what I mean?
trees,
Yeah. Or climb on rock.
near-death experiences. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like we would ride our bikes during the summer, all the way to Kipu Falls, and the sad part is now, like before, never have gates. We never know it was somebody's property. We just found one waterfall. Everybody knew about it. In summertime, that was a swimming hole, and I remember like I was one of the younger ones. My good friend Ian Whittemore. I don't know if he remembers this story, but he lives on Hawaii Island. He's a very good chef right now. And his dad, Tom Whittemore, Auntie Cindy, Brett, the whole family. We went to Kipu Falls, and he must have been a whole head taller than me. But back then, we would climb down the fall and then slide off the waterfall because, get all like algae and stuff, so it's slippery. But I was short. So I'm climbing down the waterfall, and because my feet couldn't touch, I just would drop down, and I slipped on my belly, and I slipped. And back then, it felt like 100 feet, but it's probably not that big. It's probably like falling off a 1-story or 1.5-story building, but fell straight on my back. Fortunately, I landed on the water, but my feet landed on all the rocks. So like that close from like getting seriously hurt. And we laughed our whole way back home, laughing so hard that we were crying. Later on, we would go to like the Grand Hyatt in Poipu. And, back then we would sneak in at night and go down the water slide. And part of the fun was security guards chasing us, right? So I got LASIK, but usually my vision is horrible. Like if I didn't get that corrective surgery, I'd be having thick Coke bottle glasses. But so they started turning off the water at night. But, when you're that feral, you creative. So we'd go to the bathroom and unscrew the soap dispenser and pour them down the slide and just go down the slide as much as we could. And the whole pool would turn into like this big bubble bath. And the security guard just chasing all of us. And I'm not the fastest of the pack. So I was wondering what the hell is going on when I start beating all my friends. And there's this hedge, and I launch over this hedge, and then boosh, I'm in a pond of water, all bust because there's all rocks, and I get out. And there's all these people laughing, and I look, and the security guard is like, his hand is on his knees, and he's die laughing. And I jumped into the tide pool right in front of Tide Pool's restaurant. So it was kind of like if you watch the movie Stand By Me and all those kids going on adventures during the summer looking for like the dead boy, right? Like it was being on Kauai and growing up in like the mid 80s, late 80s, early 90s was a wonderful, wonderful childhood. And, into skateboarding, sports, going to the beach. If I turned out wrong, I couldn't blame my childhood about it. Yeah, because it was that good. It was that fun.
Is it Kauai High that you went?
Yep.
And then what were you doing then? You were in sports, or that's when you did jujitsu, or what?
No, jiu-jitsu came later. Like I met these guys from, I think it was Kaiser. Yeah, Kaiser High School. So like Ivan Young, Todd Tanaka, the radio DJ Pablo Sato, Blaine Sato, that crew. I met George Kotaka,
Oh, the IKF.
Karate master,
Yeah.
like, and, I'd be like, oh, karate, but bro, this guy is legit, but that was like my senior year. But And that was like right when UFC 1, UFC 2, and we're like, oh, and so we would watch the VHS and try to figure out these moves. But when I met them, there's the first guys that really knew how to do it and was learning from Helson Gracie. And I thought that
In
that
the
was the
house,
coolest
the
thing.
house by Kalani back then?
I don't know. They started out, so I was on Kauai, right? I
Oh,
met Ivan and Pablo Sato on a close-up trip. So our social studies class took us up as seniors to DC and then New York, Philly. And that's where I linked up with these guys. And that's where I found out like, oh, these guys are training like Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. So that was cool. But during high school, football, I love football. Yeah, I mean, I played all the sports, baseball, not very good at it. Basketball, I could only dribble with my right hand. You know what I mean? Couldn't do a proper layup, so just sucked at it. But football, I fell in love with football, and it goes back to Pop Warner. And again, another person that came into my life, Coach Dwayne Naumu. We sucked at football. Lihue Jets, we were horrible, but we had heart, and we played to the final whistle, even if we're down 50 points. And a lot of that was because of this coach, Dwayne Naumu, who took a bunch of us kids from around the neighborhood, put some pads on us, taught us how to tackle completely wrong because he taught us how to tackle with our head, which is a big no-no nowadays. And who knows how many concussions I've had. I know I've had like 3, but probably more. And even if we lost, if we gave our 100%, that's all he looked at. He never even cared about excellence. He wanted to see effort.
I'm curious. You were there during Hurricane Iniki?
Yeah. Day before, we had football practice, and our coach came out, and it was just flawless. Blue sky, not just dead hot heat. Season opener, first game of the season, our coach comes out. Well, boys, sleep well, don't get in trouble at school, and starting lineup is right there. So we're all looking, ooh, I made the starting lineup defense. Like, I'm stoked. All right. And I wake up to the sound of sirens, and my dad like waking me up like, hey, Derek, you come, get out. We got to go help out at the store. I'm like, what is going on? He said, the hurricane hitting. I'm like, what? No, it's not. He said, no, it is. We got to go to the store. We jump in, we go to the store, and there's just like a crowd of people at Lihui Big Save. And I'm over there just bagging groceries and seeing people that I know, like, and the look on their face of like just, kind of panic, concern, and me just being like, oh, this is real. Getting home and having that hurricane come, and it's just like it goes from day to night because it's that heavy, and there's like that slow build up, and the sound of the hurricane is what I remember. But I remember just like our picture glass windows just flexing and breathing, and me and my dad just standing, my mom screaming,
Like
what
waiting
are
for
you
it to
guys
break.
doing? Our neighbor, Mr. Ellis, who just built a brand new, beautiful house with beautiful blue Japanese tiles, and just seeing the tiles like flecking off. And then just, it felt like forever that we were in the back bedroom, and like our house was unscathed. Like but when that eye came over, it got still, like eerily still. Skies cleared up. All of us went out, like our neighbors went out checking on each other, and we all looked like, we were all just like, oh. And knowing that the eye was above us, and then slowly feeling the wind build up and getting back in the house, I remember like it happened yesterday. I remember Harry Kim, who was civil defense, like coming up to our door, and my dad knew him because remember J.C. Penney's Hilo, so they already had a relationship. And Harry Kim coming to the door and saying, oh, is your dad home? I'm like, oh, Dad, hey, Harry. Hey. And I hear them conversing, and my dad is like, hey, Derek, we got to jump in your truck. Let's go check out the store. September 11th, I turned 15 on August 19. I don't have much driving experience, and here I am driving my dad and being one of the first ones on the road at age 15 and thinking our island is dead. It'll never come back to life. I hope my friends are alive. That's how bad it looked. And getting to the store, and Harry, Kim, and my dad walking around, pulling off whatever perishables they could to get it out to the shelters. But that is life as a kid growing up in a rural, like still ag community, right? Sugary community. And that's the adventures we got to. That's what I remember about Hurricane Iniki. Some of the scariest, but as a adolescent youth growing up, some of the best, funnest times I had. I went to Mid-Pacific for a short stint after Hurricane Iniki, and I met a man who, like Coach Naumu, who at the time, coming from a hurricane, living with my brother, kind of being scared, right? A sophomore in a big fancy school where you're required to wear collared shirts and covered shoes, long pants, feeling very out of place, but feeling very at home whenever the bell rang and I was going off to the locker room and going to football practice and having all of these football players just embracing me. And to think about, like, to have 5 different schools, Pac-5, and have a coach to build that locker room environment and chemistry where we all work as one unit, that takes a special man. And, you know, it's guys like that just always remind me that it just takes one person to believe in somebody else to make a huge impact in that person's life. And it doesn't take much. Sometimes it just takes the time and effort and just believing in somebody and not giving up and making them feel important to make a huge impact. And bless his heart, you know. You know, the state, the athletic world lost a great man in Don Botello. But again, his interaction was brief. I only played for a part of a season, wrecked my shoulder, never could play football again, could never watch a football game again because it's just torturous. Even today, to this day, if I show up to a football game, I mean, enough time has passed or I've gotten past it, but like my mind starts wandering like, oh man, I wish, I wish I didn't get hurt, that would have changed my life. Maybe I wouldn't have done certain things or hung out with a crowd that, but again, I always fall back on the positive things in life, and Don Botello was a huge one. The football players that I played with, Tyler Forsythe, Justin Forsythe, Francisco Lutu, many of those different players, the upperclassmen, that really treated me with grace and with love and like went the extra mile to make me feel comfortable. And, it's rare, to have like teenage kids, jocks, to show that kind of compassion and support. They have a great leader behind them. They're either coming from good families, which I'm sure they do, but I can tell you the common denominator is we had a great head coach that cared about each one of his kids. I mean, we had kids coming from like KPT, Papa Kolea, like just, a mixed bag. And all of them, I think, gained great life skills because of Coach Bo. And like at the end of the games, I remember it's kind of emotional because, you're bringing up like fond memories, but I can remember him just coming up and saying, boys, you guys make me so proud. You guys played your hearts out. And we're looking up at the scoreboard, it's like 42, like 6, you know what I mean? He said, I'm so proud. Like, your parents are all proud. That's what I want to see. Perpetual motion. You guys fought your heart out. And, that has also made a big impact on my life too. Yeah. And all the guys I played with. Growing up, I learned how to get along with people from all different backgrounds, all walks of life. Kids with like broken homes, kids from successful families, all kinds of ethnicities. Like, it made me to who I am today. My childhood and the people that were around that time, I really feel that I'm just a sum of all those parts, all those interactions. And some of them, even brief as they were, I feel like they made an impact in my life. But yeah.
Like which one would be brief that made a big impact on your life?
This is later on in life. And it's kind of sad because I forget her name. And if she listens, she's going to know who I'm talking about. And I don't want to hurt her feelings, but I still think about her. So when I was in college, I would come home for the summers and I'd make shave ice out in Ele, Port Allen, because they moved all the tour boats out of Honolulu, right? Governor Cayetano kicked the tour boats out of Black Pot, Honolulu, and they all relocated to Port Allen. And so typically in the summers, I work in the grocery store. Our family used to own and operate grocery stores, and I know I wanted to do my own thing. And like, that's the thing about my parents too. They were so supportive of like us chasing what we wanted to, but we all had to work. In summertime, never mind if we had sports, even during the school year, we always had to have like a job, which is good. It's lacking nowadays, even for my kids. I never make them work. But so I used to make shave ice, and
like in the store, the grocery store,
right outside, yeah. So there's this guy, Uncle Aaron Furrigan, and he does shave ice, and everybody loves him. And his family is like family to us, the Furrigans. Is one of the families that helped, my grandfather like grow the grocery business, and so I consider them like family. And so Aaron Ferrigan is a shave ice guy, and he had his stand outside of Kapaa Big Save. So I wanted to do one in Port Island because I knew like, oh, all these tourists are gonna go from North Shore, they're gonna be there. And so Uncle Aaron helped me set everything up, get my health permit, you know, from Department of Health, and set me up with my business. And there was a lady who was a farmer, and she would come with her young little daughter, like almost every day, and just like order the daughter shave ice, sit down, and we would talk. And, you know, I must have been 20 years old, 21. And so, you know, when you're at that age, like, you're not really taking note of like names, you know what I mean? You just remember like, oh, the tomato auntie. And I call her the tomato auntie because she was a tomato farmer. And I don't even think if she had a house or not, because a couple of times she would say, I'd go like, oh, where you headed to? And she goes, well, we're staying right over there by our farm. And I'm like thinking, like, you guys have a house out there? She's like, oh, no. And, you know, it's where all Quiet Coffee is. And she would come every once in a while with these beautiful, beautiful vine ripened tomatoes. And we would just like barter that way. You know what I mean? She would come, she'd try to give me money. But back then I knew, you know, they were struggling, you know, and so I'd say, nah, I'll trade you for like tomatoes. And so I always remember that you don't have to be rich to, again, be kind and make an impact. You don't have to have status. You don't have to, you can just be a person who's just struggling through life that just has that optimistic aura. Because I never heard her complain. And I knew it was tough, you know what I mean? Like being a farmer in and of itself, like it is rough. And you could tell she was just rough. I can remember her hands just being like the roughest, like manliest hands, like hardworking hands. And her little daughter was just, you know, the cutest thing, but kind of always, you know what I mean? A little bit disheveled, but always happy too, just being a typical kid. And I met actually a lot of people making shave ice. You know, when I first started my business, I realized that, oh man, these tourists, they're walking all by my shave ice stand. They're going straight to Holo Holo charters. They're checking in and they're getting back in their car and they're driving down to Port Island to jump on the boat. I was like, okay, how do I do this? So because it's summertime, I had all these kind of like elementary school age kids, just feral too, right? Like 5, 6 boys were like roaming around all day, like, you know, playing ukulele. Then I see them with their fishing pole trying to catch awamas down at Port Island. So I tell them, hey, you guys like free shave ice? And they're like, oh yeah, uncle. I said, okay, come at 11 o'clock and 1:30 every single day. And I give you guys free shave ice for the rest of the summer. But you got to sit on this bench and you got to eat them right here and then play music when the tourists start coming by. So they did. They would show up like every day. And they would sit down, they'd eat their shave ice, and then tourists would come, and then one kid would just be strumming his ukulele, and then tourists started like looking, right? And then that kind of like guerrilla marketing, then they started like coming. So I said, okay, this is working. But like these tourists, they're still cheapskates because I give them big jar, like one tip jar. And, you know, back then I charged them like $2 a shave ice, 50 cents with snow cap, you know, free lihimoi powder. And so I'm thinking about like, hey, the tips is like, you know, that's my paycheck right there. So I said, okay, what the hell am I going to do? So one day I just started that tip jar and I got like $21 bills and I just crumpled them up and I stuffed them all in there and made them like it was all popping out because they say money attracts money. And then boom, that boosted my tip jar. But those little juvenile delinquents, the little feral kids, like they helped me boost that business. And you know, as time passed, like I wouldn't see them come around. And of course, I was only doing it during the summertime. And then, you know, they just, I don't even know if those kids even remember. They probably do. But if they do remember coming to Derek's Cool Running Shave Ice, those guys are what got me my customer base. Yeah, they were my marketing plan.
So was that just summertime you was doing it?
Summertime, because I was going to Chaminade University, then coming home for the summers.
What were you studying at Chaminade?
Business. My whole career path was to come back and work the family business, the big safe grocery stores. I mean, I grew up bagging groceries, chasing wagons, got to cashier, stocking shelves, you know, and I met some of the best people working in the grocery store. And that was my career path. That's what I wanted to do. And I think a large part of it was I looked up to my dad, and I think I would have done whatever he was doing. So, I mean, you know, we just happened to be in the grocery business.
So your dad was J.C. Penney's first, and then he moved to the family business?
Yeah, and that happened because Uncle Richard at the time, he called my dad up and he said, hey, I need you to come home and help out with the family business. And because that's right when he got elevated to Speaker of the House.
Oh.
So he knew his time commitment.
Oh, so your
was gonna
family
be
was already
tied up.
doing like politics.
Oh yeah, and we weren't even the political side. Like I would say, like our family is like bifurcated, where like we had the political side was like Uncle George, who goes back with Senator Inouye, my Uncle Richard, my Auntie Bertha, and then you had the business side, which is like my dad, and then he had a brother, you know, Uncle Edward, who was a dentist, and then Auntie Gert, I think she was like right in the middle, because politically she was involved, but she was also on the day-to-day on the business. So my dad got called back home, stepped into a family business, and shortly thereafter, my Uncle Richard, who was an outdoorsman, fisherman, hunter, he unfortunately passed away from a massive heart attack hunting on Lanai. Yeah. And it's the first time I ever see my dad cry.
That's his brother.
Yeah. And I didn't even see my dad cry that hard like ever again, even after my mom passed. I mean, he teared up, but that's the first time I saw who I thought was like the most stoic, strong, impenetrable,
Like samurai
tough guy.
kind.
Yeah. Like just break down and sob like a baby. And I remember at that age being real young and seeing that and being like super scared. Like not because, you know, like he was gonna scold me or like, you know, give me lickings, but just super scared because I was like seeing a man who I didn't see that emotional side of him break down publicly. And I remember not ever wanting to see that again.
But you said you never did see that again.
Never. But there's certain things in his life that changed him as a person. When I was a senior in high school, he had a massive heart attack. And I don't know how long he was like literally
Like Widowmaker
dead.
kind?
Oh, he was gone. He was flatlined. And even the cardiologist later on said he's like a miracle. And I know, like, I was a senior in high school. I don't even know if I had a cell phone back then. I had a beeper. I may have had like a cell phone. Who knows? But either way, I wasn't answering my beeper or my cell phone. And it was a Friday night. And by the time I called home to see what was happening, he had already had a massive heart attack. They were already at Wilcox Hospital. And I remember just this feeling of dread. But they saved him. And he didn't have any long-lasting, you know, sort of effects from that heart attack and for being like dead for so long before coming back. But then after, that's when he would say, I love you, and like hug and get like, you know, like, and not like all the time, you know what I mean? Like he's still a Japanese samurai man. And then I guess I started telling him I love you too, you know, Dad, because like when you almost lose somebody like that, I think you realize like how important they are. Yeah, so he changed a little. He softened up a little. He got more like expressive, you know, saying I love you, hugging me, saying, oh, I'm proud of you. But he was still, you know, kind of like stoic. Yeah, I'm completely different. I'm like softer. Yeah, as a father, I think I'm more expressive, you know, but still I have traits of him.
I remember when my dad got sick too. He had leukemia. And then every time he would get like near death, then he'd be like, oh, thank you. Yeah, all nice. Then there'd be a point where he'd be like, hey, come. He's like, yeah. Fat, yeah. And he'd be like, oh, your freaking dad's better already. He's getting better. He's on the way up. Red alert. No more red alert. Okay. Brought us back to normal.
Yeah. And, you know, it's hard because, like, I lost, like, my mom, my dad, and my older brother in, like, the span of, like, 18 months. Like,
Oh, and your brother, too?
Oh, yeah. And I lost him, you know, unfortunately, like to suicide. And, you know, people ask me, like, oh, they kind of get shocked, right, when I just talk about it openly. But, you know, the reason why I do that, like, to go back to, like, what I said before, like, some of the people I look up to in life, like, I felt like they're open and vulnerable about, like, you know, hey, don't do that. And like, oh, why? Because then they would, like, tell me, like, you know, they played around with that and how it impacted their life. And I remember just kind of being shocked, like, oh my God, like TMI. But when it comes to like mental health, I really feel that in Hawaii, you know, we have this culture of like, oh, no make waves, like, hey, no shame, the family, don't, you know, don't expose your weaknesses. Like all that is just BS. And like, we gotta just start talking openly about it because we're losing like way too many young people, especially young men and boys, because I think
It's mostly young men and boys.
It is,
Yep.
yeah. And I think a lot of it is because I think men may be under some sort of fictitious pressure to like man up. But what does that mean? Because some of the toughest guys I know, they have like a soft side, and I respect that. And they're not afraid to like show that side because I think they're confident about like who they are. And, I feel like all of these things happening to me allows me to talk openly to kind of break down the walls where maybe families are like, oh, like we successful. We're not supposed to be having these kind of problems, because it doesn't discriminate. And until we get people comfortable to address it, nothing changes if nothing changes. So I really try to talk openly. And sometimes I'm kind of uncomfortable because I don't know how everybody in my family feels about it. They may be uncomfortable with me talking so openly, but it is what it is.
Wait,
I
so
have a role.
how many brothers, sisters do you have?
I got two older brothers. We're all boys. Yep.
Okay,
All
so you're
three
the
alphas.
youngest.
Yeah.
And then your brother that passed away, he was what, the middle?
Middle boy. Yeah. Douglas. Yep.
And was that during COVID or what?
It was before. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So middle children, they get it the worst. Yeah, I would say my heart goes out to all the middle kids out there because the oldest, Craig, he's always going to be my hero. And I think Doug, I think we all looked up to him because academically and athletically, and I say this, like he has it all. Being good with his hands, like he got all the good DNA. And then you got your middle kid, Doug, and then you got me. And I would say like I had it easy because when my family was moving around, I was so young that it didn't really impact me, right? The younger you are when you're, just gypsies and transient, I think the easier it is for you maybe to adjust. And I know when we moved from Hilo, like they were already at that adolescent age where they're finding their own feet, their own, and they got their own friends, and boom, they're uprooted.
Yeah.
We moved to Mililani, and it's only like 2 years, so they're at Mililani High,
like military.
Trojans, and they're getting their feet established, and then boom, my dad gets called back to Kauai, and I'm young, second grade, so it doesn't impact me. But I know like if I was their age, it would be kind of abrupt. And so at that age, they decided, hey, we don't like leave Oahu. So my parents said, oh, okay, you going Mid-Pacific, you going Kamehameha. And so my brother Doug went to Mid-Pacific. My older brother Craig went to Kamehameha. And so like literally they have not living on their own, but like, hey, you living on your own when you're dorming, you know what I mean? Like you grow up fast. And so from that young age, they were kind of on their own. And so, Doug was the middle kid. And I think that may have traumatized his life because I know like it would come up, like in arguments.
Like he felt abandoned?
He felt abandoned, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And like, I know like for my mom, it ate her up, like, because I don't think like any mom like wants to feel they abandoned their kid, especially when the kid is telling them, I don't like leave, stay here. You're always trying to do what's best for the kid. And so like when it gets turned around, I think it's just, heartbreaking. And so after my mom died, and all through life, like, we kind of like, like he was always like grumpy, like, but I will tell you this, after Hurricane Iniki, I went to live with him, and I was a sophomore at Mid-Pacific, and he took care of me like a dad. Like he made sure I was fed, that I had clothes, that I got to school. And so I always remember that good side. But he was always like just grouchy and complaining. And then as we got older, it was real like up and down, and we don't know anything about mental health, right? But like just telltale signs, run into them. And both of us, we love hunting. Like the common denominator, like, like we love hunting, we love our firearms. And so when we talk about hunting, we're talking about firearms, just get along, you're just like almost manically happy. But then there was like patterns. I think, he's super happy now. Next time I see him, I'm gonna be super like grumpy, angry. And so we had
like
friction.
real high, real low.
We had friction like that. So when my mom passed away, and he was always clashing with my dad, I really thought that, oh man, where's Doug gonna go with this? But the most interesting thing is like my dad and my brother Doug got super, super close. Like they would go golfing together. They were always together. They would come over to our house and eat. And so like things around the men, and it looked good. Like I was like, oh man, like, of course I miss my mom, but like out of this came this. And then when my dad passed away, just things spiraled downwards real quick.
Oh.
And the memory I bring up the most and that I talk about the most, because as an elected official and a candidate, everywhere I go, I receive lei, right? And so I always, especially if somebody made the lei, I always tell the lei maker, my mom was a lei maker. And when I was growing up from like young kid time to into adulthood, as long as she's making lei, my job was to go in the backyard with her basket and go pick Lantern Lima, Ohaili, and said, oh, Ohaili, you cannot rush and pick that flower because it's so thorny. I have scars on my hands because, picking flowers, the Micronesian ginger, all of the flowers, I would go pick them. And I would remember in the evenings after dinner, she'd be at the kitchen table smoking her Benson Hedges menthol lights. I would be on the couch watching like Married with Children or just like, talking story with my mom while she's sewing her lei. And I remember her just telling me about life. And every once in a while, she'd be like, hey, you better come learn, I'm not going to be here forever. You better come learn this kind so that you can make. And I remember always saying, yeah, tomorrow. And I never did learn. But I tell these lei maker that story and I tell them, I will never throw this in the trash. I will always use it. I'll pass it on and I'll do with it what my mom taught me the proper way to do with it, because so much time and love goes into it. And I don't know why that memory and story comes up, but it does. And if she was in a bad mood, which happened more often than not, she would put everything away, put all the flowers away, put it in the fridge, put all her lei needle, all her thread, put it away, and get over whatever was bothering her, because she was a firm believer, like, hey, you cannot make this if you have negativity. And a lot of that was, I think, her upbringing in the old ways, right? And carry that with me like all the time. And I think that's a memory I keep on coming back to, and I don't know why. I think it was because me just doing something kind for her without her asking, and just kind of like, she didn't have to nag me. Automatically, I'd come home, I'd grab the basket. We had a dog, Pepper, our Dalmatian. I'd go in the back, kind of play around with him, but just like picking flowers for her. I fall back on that memory. It's very fun. I miss that part. And I wish she was around to see all of this. And I wish like the people had a chance to meet my mom and dad, because they would meet them and they would vote for me because of them. They would love my mom, and my mom would have loved this. I think the guys would like my dad, but like my mom was beloved by like many. And she was like awkward, like she was one of those ladies, like if you had a Filipino accent, she would start talking to you with that Filipino accent. I'd be like, Mom, what the hell are you doing? But they never like looked at her like anything, She was always loving and fair. And she was a teacher, and her students would say, oh yeah, your mom was strict, but she was fair and loving. And that's how she was. She was very straightforward. As a younger child, I had like no guardrails. As I got older, I had curfew. I was already an adult. If I'm not home by 12, she's driving by Kalapaki. And my friends was already used to it, even though I'm ashamed. Like, oh, bro, D, your mom coming around. Never gave me grief, never did tease me, but like, oh, shucks, And I would go home and my mom would say, hey, you know what? I cannot sleep until I know you're at home. And you don't understand now, but one day you will. And I used to always just like, all right, And many years now, having a daughter that's 22, I didn't understand then, but I understand now why my daughter needs to be home before I go to sleep, and why she has to be home by a certain time, even though she's an adult, if she's under my roof, because that's a law. That's a law of the land in our household, and I understand now. My mom was a very special person. I miss her and my dad, but in a sense, I feel them all around, and I think it's impossible not to have some guilt that you just live with for the rest of your life, because the million woulda, coulda, shouldas like come up. Like I know for a fact the weekend that it happened, they're honoring my dad at HFIA, Hawaii Food Industry Association, like inducting him into like their Hall of Fame for all of his contributions to the food industry. And back then he would call, and like when he would call, he would like just complain for like an hour, and it was like draining. So like sometimes I was just like, oh, I see him calling, but man, I cannot deal with it, so I wouldn't pick it up. And I would, think that like, nah, he'll figure it out, and then see him around, and he'd be better. And then like that weekend, I called him. I said, hey, they honoring dad at HFI, they're offering all of us, you, me, to go up to Koalina to represent the family. We should go up. Like, they're picking it up. And he was thinking about like, oh, let me think about it, because he had his dogs, right? He's an animal lover. And so I'm packing, and then, I see later on, oh, I'm missed call. So maybe he wants to come. So I'm calling, he don't pick up, call, he don't pick up. I'm like, oh, maybe he figured it out. And then I remember just being at the airport, and one of the aunties calling, Auntie Jeannie called my wife, and then they're talking, and you can sense something is wrong. And Monica looking at me, she goes, oh, Auntie Jeannie called. She told me not to tell you now, but as soon as we land, we gotta go check your brother out. And so we did, and then that's when I found out he passed away. And then we found out different things, like he was trying to go see a therapist. And that's when mental health became like a top priority, like from a legislator and from an elected official standpoint. And, for years, we've been pushing legislation to allow psychologists to have limited prescriptive authority, right, under the supervision of a psychiatrist, because I don't know about Oahu. Oahu might have choke psychiatrists, but you go to rural place, no more.
I think therapist shortage, period.
And now with telehealth and everything else, it improves access. But for families that are just like going through crisis with a loved one, or they themselves going through it, it's almost like navigating through a labyrinth just to find like the help that you need. And so, some of the arguments I heard at the committee hearings with psychiatrists saying, oh, if psychologists want to prescribe, then they should just go to school and, become doctors. And I was kind of like, it's kind of cold, like, because for like people like us, and I think like, there's no way I can take the mayor's hat off when I'm submitting testimony, but for an issue like that, like a speaking from the heart, like this is a personal matter, right? And I think like when you're watching and hearing that kind of conversation, it's impossible not to get like furiously angry because of how cold and callous that can be. And you're thinking about, you as a doctor being able to prescribe, you should also have some empathy, thinking that maybe somebody in the audience, lost a loved one. And the way that you're flippantly just saying that, oh, if psychologists want to be able to help people, they got to go through more schooling and become one of us. And I'm like, you come to Kauai, you know what I mean? Or go to a rural community and tell like the hundreds of families that are struggling just to find resources and help. You look them in the eye and try to tell them something like that. But, in the heat of everything, I think people forget that, there's people watching and listening. And for them, this issue is more about a jurisdictional battle, about psychologists taking our customers and patients away, but more about, hey, there's people just struggling to survive with this disease that is treatable, but we don't have people that can provide that kind of treatment.
That's the thing. So I don't know if you know this, but I spend most of my time with therapists and coaches and so on. That's primarily what I'm doing. I actually spend time as an assistant in some of the trainings. You know what I mean? So I'm pretty aware of a lot of this.
Yeah.
And to me, it is a huge, huge issue.
Yeah.
Because when you need help and there's no more help, it's just helpless.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you cannot focus on your work. You're not going to be able to focus on anything else when somebody's suffering like that in your family. It doesn't happen. So if people don't actually talk about it and make it okay and not so much like, oh, it's just shame, or I feel guilty, or I'm going to be in panty or whatever, then I don't see how things get better.
My daughter is just graduated with a degree in psychology at UNLV, and she's going to be pursuing her master's. And I think a large part of it is because she wants to jump into the battle and like help people like her Uncle Doug or one of her cousins, because for surviving family members, like I wouldn't want them to go through like, that, like even to the person that has wronged me the most in my life, I wouldn't want them to know that feeling. Just, like thinking about it all the time, it's rough.
Yeah.
So young, he was like 47, 46 when it happened. I'm 48, so in that span of time, I look at like how much more he had to go, how much more things we could have been doing. But, in hindsight, like what I tell our family is, well, now we cannot let that loss be in vain. We got to live life to the fullest to honor them, like we almost got to live our life for us and for Uncle Doug, So squeeze everything out of life, take nothing for granted. Every day is a blessing. Don't get hung up on like the small stuff. Forgive and forget, move on, and just realize that like, hey, we all assume we got 24 hours that get reset at 12 o'clock midnight until it doesn't. So life is precious, time is precious. Let's be in the moment, put the phones down, and like enjoy life and be positive and try to make a positive impact. I think for a lot of people, well, I'll talk about myself. Like I've had to learn how to like forgive myself for all of the questions in your head that pop up, like when you lose somebody as close as like your mom, your dad, and your brother, and especially in a short period of time, because I think it's natural for people to like look within themselves, especially late at night when everything is quiet and it's only you alone with your thoughts on, was I a good son? Like, like, oh, did I make enough time? And that can drive you insane. And I think the only thing that got me through it is one, my wife getting me out of bed and not letting me like be alone in that quiet, dark space any longer than I needed to. Like the next day, we got to do this. And she was smart because she is super organized as a school teacher. She had it all calendared out. 8 o'clock, we got to be at the church. 9:30, we got to be at the mortuary. Hey, we got to pick up drinks from Costco, just keeping me busy. But I think for people, take preventative measures and take the time now to tell your mom and dad and your loved ones, I love you. If you get into a fight, try not to let it go on too long. I know it's hard because like me, I can be habotero. Like I get on super long fuse, but like once I get into a battle, it's like I just haboot for like, it can be like days, and I've had to learn how to stop doing that because you don't want to end the note on a bad note like that. And so time is precious. Love like there's no tomorrow. Make sure the people that you love know that you love them. And even when you're disagreeing, even if it's like, I know you piss off at me and I know I'm pissed off at you, but I love you, but I don't like talk to you right now. I still love you, but we ain't good. And that's for their own personal, I think, salvation later on, because I think your mind is going to go all over the place. Especially me, because I wasn't an easy child. I wasn't a bad child, but I gave my parents their fair share of headaches. I gave a lot of people close to me their fair share of headaches. But every single day, I try to live my life to make things whole, to like redeem myself. And not to say I was a criminal or that I was like hurting people. I'm a typical local boy, a typical neighborhood kid that like, was having fun through high school, carried it into college and like into adulthood. But now I try to spend my time like being a good example, talking about like missteps that I took, because I know other people coming up are going to take the same missteps, and giving them ways to navigate their way out of it. You know what I mean? And giving people the hard talk. Like some people just cannot stay in Hawaii. Like I tell people like, bro, you know what your problem is? Your environment. Like if you really quit, like seriously, you gotta pack up and leave and go someplace where you know more like one support system, because your support system here sucks. Because the guys around you are always gonna keep you down because misery loves company. And some people get pissed off at me, but some people I think they think about it and whatever it's worth. I don't know if anybody's actually taking my advice, but hey, I get it off my chest on what I think they need to do, and I may not be right, but if they're gonna ask, I'm gonna tell them, right? But I always tell them, hey, go talk to a therapist, go ask one counselor, go to the AAA meetings that starts at 7 o'clock at Poipu Beach Park. I see them all the time. Those guys are hammers. I give them credit. Every morning, 7 o'clock, they're out there. Alcoholics Anonymous. Like if you feel alone and you feel like you don't have somebody to go talk to, there's a community of people out there that are all suffering to the same thing. Go look up your local chapter of Alcoholics Anonymous or NA or whatever organization. If you want to talk to me about it, you can, but I would suggest you go find subject matter experts or at least a community of people that are all struggling together, because I've seen people change their lives, and I'm a believer in these organizations. I look at them and I hold all these folks in the highest regard, because they're going through a struggle and they're fighting and clawing to make themselves better and probably to make people whole and move on with their life and forgive themselves. And there is nothing more heroic and courageous and brave than somebody that's willing to address the problem and realizing the problem is looking back at them in the mirror. It's them. That's huge.
Yeah. Sounds like you have a lot of, I don't know if it's the universe volunteering you into that specific lesson over and over, right? Through your own, almost eating it on the waterfall.
Yeah.
Your dad's heart attack, your brother, your mom, you know what I mean? You're getting reminders, kind of a lot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're talking to a guy that has 2 torn biceps. I think I've had like 3 hernia repairs. I'm dealing with a partially torn meniscus. I got 6 stitches.
From like jujitsu, or what is that from?
Oh, the 2 torn biceps?
Yeah.
The hernias? Basic dude stuff.
Oh.
One was like a Christmas tree and just trying to like grab it in. This one was like trying to like install an overhead shelf that had like, I had like not screwed it on straight, so it was already loaded up. So I was trying to like, just muscle it up, and it started slipping over the car. So I tried to catch it and just freak accident. So like nothing to brag about, like basic dude stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I had it before, just reaching over for the laundry basket, going down,
Yeah. And that's what it's about. It's like, when I say time flies, like holy mackerel. This 8 years that I've been as mayor, it feels like it went by like way, way too fast. Like it feels like almost like life is cruel and the universe is cruel, because they made some of my best years where I got to really learn a lot about who I am, my identity, how much pressure can I take? Can I stay true during some of the most toughest times of my life and then come through it? So it feels like these 8 years that were so meaningful, and like every day had some big, huge sense of purpose, and at the end of the day had some level of fulfillment, went by the quickest during all of my years. And I'm like, sheesh, I got to see my daughter graduate high school as mayor. I got to see her graduate from college as mayor. Now I'm moving on to the next journey. And it's really made me very mindful of where I spend my time. And this being like campaign season, of course, I'm spending my time doing what I got to do, but I also know how to find balance and put barriers so that my family knows that they're the most important thing.
How do you do that?
Showing them and showing up and being present and saying, sorry, I cannot go to your guys' gala event because my daughter wants to go do this, and I'm very open and honest about it, and hey, look, however it rubs people, it is what it is. Like I'm a dad first, a husband, and then public servant.
So how hard is that to hold that kind of boundary?
Not hard. I mean, it's kind of liberating. Like, I think if you come to grips that, my mom would say, you're not gonna be everybody's cup of tea, so stop trying to be somebody else. Be yourself. Yeah, I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And there's no way I can attend every single event that everybody wants me to go to. So sometimes you got to learn how to just say no.
Was that hard for you before?
Nah, not really. I mean, no, not as mayor. Not as mayor. I think a lot of things got clear when I became mayor. One, I stopped drinking completely, because if there was any like kryptonite in my life, like, and that's like, I would say, like, you got to know your weaknesses. That would have been my kryptonite. And so
it was like cold turkey one time, or how'd it go?
Nah, it wasn't cold turkey. It was like a series of me stopping and saying, oh, look, I'm kind of good. And then like, I can have a drink. And then like, and then like, oh, this is kind of bad. But yeah, at that point, it went cold turkey. I just said, yeah, it ain't going to happen. And I'm lucky because I love that scene. I love the nightlife scene. Like, even though I'm older, like, I love getting down on the dance floor. I love being in like bar settings and just like very festive settings. And I know there's people that stop drinking that can't even be like within like 200 feet of it. They just cannot. And so I feel lucky that even with an addictive personality type, I was able to like take care of this and not have to like change all of that stuff that
was
I
it
also
super
enjoy.
hard?
The last time I stopped, no, it wasn't, because it was like, I had so much riding. I'm the mayor. I'm gonna make a mockery of it, like shame, like potentially shame. Now in a day with camera phones everywhere and just people trying to catch you slipping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just like watching all night like weirdos, just waiting for a moment for you to say the wrong thing, which I think is like weird. So if you guys are out there doing that, looming around, like stop, because it's not cool. You know, like go have fun. Don't be a weirdo trying to like catch people slipping. But here's what's hard. If you're gonna do something like that, you got to do it for yourself. And I tell people that, like, you know, when somebody comes up to me and says, "Oh, Mayor, I heard about your story. You know, me, I'm trying to do it too. You know, can you help, or you know what you do?" I said, "Well, it depends. Like, if you have a mindset like me, where once I set my mind, it's like, all right, it's done. And sometimes it takes a while for me to get to that point. I can be stubborn in that way. But I said, like,
But once you make the decision, that's it.
oh yeah, yeah. You got to do it for you, because if you're doing it for like your girlfriend, or you're doing it for your kids or anybody else, what you're doing is you're doing it because you want them to forgive you, and that ain't gonna happen overnight. I'm like, only time heals that kind, you know? So you got to be strong enough to do it for you. Forgive yourself, because a lot of people, they forget, like, they got to forgive themselves. Like, yeah, I was screw up, but you know what? I'm doing the right thing. And even if everybody's still judging me, hey, I'm good with me, and I just going to be strong, and I'm going to keep on doing it, prove everybody wrong. And in time, because only time heals that kind of wounds, in time, you know, people will come around and forgive. And that's where I see a lot of people slip in. They make this change in their life for the better, and they realize, like, oh, everybody judging me like I'm still the same guy I was like 2 weeks ago. And they start getting angry, and then before you know it, boom, they're drowning themselves in whatever vice they had, and they give up. You know? And of course, like, I may be a unique case. I ain't no, you know, addiction counselor or substance abuse expert. I'm just telling people like what my experience is. But what I'm also doing is I'm telling people like, hey, look, these kind of like big challenges impact like all kinds of people across the whole spectrum of society. And some people are hiding it, some people are functioning, some people rehabilitate themselves, some people need group rehabilitation. But whatever it is, like, we gotta start having open conversations about these uncomfortable kind of topics, because until then we just keep on sweeping things under the rug. So, you know.
Are you aware of the psychedelic assisted psychotherapy?
Yeah, I'm very aware. Like, people are now microdosing. Well, I don't know if it's the same thing, but I know
It's
that
like psilocybin you're talking about.
yeah, they're trying to take a look at microdosing. I can't even pronounce it correct.
Psilocybin,
Yeah,
mushrooms.
yeah. To treat things like PTSD and all kinds of other things. And, you know, hey, look, why not? If it works, right? I think we need to be open-minded, but until the jury is out, I'm still like reading up on it.
Yeah. So I follow down quite a bit. It's like MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelics. I think that's what it is. But that one is MDMA. So MDMA is pure form of ecstasy.
Yeah.
But that one is used, you know, for people with treatment-resistant either PTSD or depression.
Yeah.
And their results are unreal. It's like 70-something% or something like that.
Yeah.
End up having no more symptoms.
Yeah, I believe a lot of things that are typically looked upon as like taboo or negative or illegal, or you know what I mean, are all because humans just have a tendency to abuse stuff and overdo it. You know what I mean? And I think if you overdo and abuse anything, it can be bad for you. But I think when it's done with an intention for the greater good, right, to help people, I think it should be explored. I think people should take a look at it. I think that's why science and medicine and health is so important, because it gives people the ability to really take a look at what the impacts are, both positive and negative, and weigh out whether the net positive is worth some of the risk, and let people decide, you know. Because I think a lot of like, I mean, what people are getting hurt with are like, well, what you get like, you know, prescribed to you, and it can work if used as the instructions say. But the minute they get a taste of something good and they want more and more, and boom, you got a problem on your hands, you know.
So you went to Chaminade.
Yeah.
And then
I love that school.
Oh yeah?
Oh, they care about their students. Yeah, and not to say the other schools don't, you know, I'm sure they do, but like for me, I went to UH and it was just too big. You know, I flunked out, you know, I didn't get past my first year. Like I remember just like trying to get the classes I need was all like filled. So I took something like linguistics. They, it was open. We went to the first day and I was like, I'm not going back to this class again. Nobody even knew who I was. It's just so many students. I was like, well, nobody really knows. And then I realized like, oh man, they actually, there's actually consequences. And I learned that real quick. And I came back.
Then you just transferred to Chaminade?
No, no ways. I came back home and I broke my mom's heart. And my dad told me. My dad is the one that picked me up at the airport. And I remember that conversation because he's just quiet. And he goes, oh, I cannot say much, son, because I got kicked out of UH2. And I was like, what? I didn't know that. He said, yeah, I don't talk about it. What happened to you? He said, the same thing that's going to happen to you. You're going to the army. And oh my God, like I just hatched right there. You know what I mean? Like everything just dropped. And I was like just quiet. And then he looks, he goes, nah, there's no way you would survive in the army. I don't know what you're going to do, but you're going to have to go home because, oh, you hurt your mom bad. And I hurt her bad because I've been lying to her the whole year, telling her, oh yeah, school is good. I'm getting good grades, just being like stupid and not realizing like how it would hurt her at the end. And so at the end of all of it though, I came back home. My dad made me work in the office right next to him. I spent many hours microfilming documents and many hours shredding papers. And I think he gave me all the jobs that like would just torture me. I went to KCC to slowly earn the trust back that I'm not going to waste my parents' money on tuition and just like play when I go away to school. But then I met Monica at KCC, and she was the most beautiful thing. And she was in a ceramics class at night, and I was in a computer science class at night. And I remember my computer professor talking about Y2K and the whole world's gonna end, and so I'd say, well, then hell, why am I in this class? So I would like dig out from computer class and go to ceramics and just like rub elbows and shoulders and like make small talk with this girl. And then I was almost on my way to Point Loma because my counselor, Auntie Sharon Chiba, my best friend's mom, who was at KCC, was like, oh, you should look at this school in San Diego. Look at this surf spot. Look, oh, and only the kids on this campus get to go surf at that spot. And I was like, ooh, that sounds good. Little I know it was a dry campus, right? So she's trying to like coerce me to go to this school and use surfing, but a dry campus, because she knew like what was going to be my distraction. In the meantime, I meet Monica and like, oh no, I'm going to Chaminade. My mom went to Chaminade, all my aunties, my cousins, we're a Chaminade family. So I went, boom, to Chaminade. And when I say that school is great, I owe so much to Marlene Baker, Henry Gomes, and all of the professors there and the faculty and staff, because it's a small enough school where I think they have enough time to give every student like that level of attention. And I just feel like that was probably the best higher education setting for somebody like me. And then it helped that my wife and I were living together, and she would like come by the class and make sure I was sitting in my seat, right? Like always supervising.
Oh, you was married already?
No, not even married. We were living in sin, She's Catholic. I'm Catholic too now, but like, back then, it was expensive rent. So we had to pool our resources. So, so we've been living a married life since we were like 19.
So she went to Chaminade too then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Education. She's a school teacher. Minor in psychology. Now I got like a daughter with her degree in psychology, my wife who's a minor, and I always feel like I'm being analyzed, especially like when I'm having like, a little tantrum, like I get little tantrums at home. I'm like, and they're all like, interesting. And I like, stop analyzing me, but we have a good life. And Chaminade was a great school for me. And I owe a lot to that school. And I owe a lot to the people that have crossed my journey at that time, and I tell kids all the time, hey, Chaminade is a great option. I'm a silver sword, shaman nerd, my wife is. And, but I think anybody that goes and does something positive after high school, like find your own path, find what gives you a sense of fulfillment. And, like money doesn't buy happiness. I know a lot of people with a lot of money and they seem miserable. I don't know if they are miserable. They're always complaining, they're always chasing, they're always competing. And I think to myself, man, I don't know if I want to like be in that, you know, in that kind of like trajectory. So I tell my kids, like, find something at the end of the day that gives you like a deep sense of fulfillment and gratitude, and that like just you wake up like excited to go to work. And being mayor for the last 8 years, no day is the same, and no day goes as planned. And sometimes it goes south, sometimes it goes north, but there's not a day that goes by that I'm like, oh, that was pretty cool. You know, like I still go back to like my young days riding my bike with my friends going to Kipu Falls, and that kid would never have imagined that one day he would be doing this. And so I tell all these kids, like, you guys can do it. And sometimes it's timing, sometimes it's hard work, but it's a combination of everything, you know. And if it's meant to be and you put the effort in, like things can happen. But it starts with finding what makes your heart fulfilled, you know.
So what makes your heart fulfilled?
I grew up in the service industry, the grocery business. And from a young age, even when I was young, like delivering newspapers, being a shave ice man, bagging groceries, you know, asking Mrs. Ikeda, did you find everything in the grocery store? You know, oh, can you go look and see if you get the Japanese nori? And even if I know, like, there's nothing in the back, like, I'm going to go in the back and just pretend, because it's the effort, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just being in a position to serve and to like help people along, you know, whether it's a small thing or even a big thing. And some things just cannot be helped. You know what I mean? Like some things it's like there's no fix. And sometimes I gotta tell people like, look, I can only meet you halfway, and government is only designed to meet you halfway. And once we start overextending, it becomes like, you know, like a little bit unfair. So man, to fix this problem, you gotta go look in the mirror and go change that person looking back, like honestly. And sometimes they don't want to hear that. Sometimes they know it, but like I think that's what makes my heart beat, is just like being in a position to make things happen and try to make a positive impact. And sometimes it happens and nobody will notice, and sometimes it doesn't happen even if you like try. But I think it's the effort and the mission of it, and just a feeling of like having a positive impact is really cool.
So if you could only choose one memory from your entire experience as mayor and everything else you'd forget, what would you hold with you?
So one experience, one memory is the feeling of opening my front door during COVID-19 and seeing my wife and daughter waiting with my two dogs, and them saying, okay, tonight we're doing this. And I'm like, butterbeer or bubble snakes or lava lamps? I'm like, can we do something simpler like sock puppets? I'm tired. But just seeing like the excitement on their face, because that's kind of when we were doing our stay home Kauai, just to engage with like the public, right? And it was actually my wife's idea, because as a school teacher, she's like, oh, I gotta find a way to like just stay engaged with our kids. You know, what do you think we can do? And so we did these silly little videos. And so I think me coming home just tired, fatigued, and just like grouchy, and seeing them and how excited they were to have me do something that sometimes I didn't feel like I wanted to do, but then just seeing how excited they were and it could change like my outlook on it, it is more of a feeling that I hold close to my heart rather than an experience. But I will hold that feeling very close to me, because it's the feeling of them waiting for me to come home and the feeling of them being excited when I came home, even if it was just because they needed to put me to work to get these videos out. And I think that's what people really want, is to be wanted, and, you know, to have people like excited to see you. And that was heartwarming, you know.
So you mentioned your wife quite a bit. What's something maybe you could share that would give us a good idea of who she is to you?
Beyond the fact that I told you that I really think that she has this natural intuition to read people and to see situations, like and to see like people's talents, especially in me. She read the book The Alchemist and is like living it, like envisioning these things happening. And she does, and I watch her and I laugh at it, because I'm not a real subscriber to like believe, you know, write it down and achieve. I just go, you know, I just like go all out, paddle hard, put your head down and just like have that leap of faith. So I will say a good story about her is that she loves history and she loves being a social studies teacher. And she's a firm believer that the most important thing in the world is history. And here's where the battle is. Social studies, I don't think is a core. Like the Department of Education, I don't think they view social studies and history as important as like reading, writing, arithmetic. But in her eyes, it is probably the most important thing for society because it tells you where we've come from. And you need to know, she will say, you need to know where you've come from to know where we're going. And you need to know what mistakes are made to be able to identify those mistakes that happen again and to do everything possible to stop those mistakes from happening again because everything is cyclical. And she gives me inspiration in a lot of different ways that oftentimes I think can get overlooked. Like for example, just a few days ago, I had to go talk to a group of engineers. And I'm like, what the hell do I say about engineers? Like, I don't get them, I know that like they drive me crazy because like they're perfectionists. And I'm just like, bro, we just got to get this bridge fixed. Like, what are you guys doing? What's taking so long? Why are these permits? But she goes, well, you know what? Politicians and elected officials have governed empires, but engineers have built them. I'm like, holy mackerel. That is, And she goes, think about Rome. They say Rome wasn't built overnight and all roads lead to Rome. And you take a look at the ingenuity of them creating like concrete, the same concrete that we use today. If you take a look at like the pyramids in Egypt and how they created the irrigation systems that like have really allowed agriculture to happen in dry and arid places. And you take a look at the horrors of like just tyranny and just like crimes of the past when you have like dictators. And all of those things are important for us to know because they are bound to happen again. Life is a series of patterns and what history teaches you. So she tells me these little things. So I go up to a group of engineers and I just like recite like everything that she just told me and add like a little bit more flavor. And I knew right there when I put it into that context, all those engineers in that room is going to vote for me come like August because I was able to relate the importance of the job that they did. And it wasn't because I'm the best and brightest, because I got a wife who thinks that history is the most important thing in the world for kids to know. And that it's unfortunate that is not being held in that level of importance. And she's just a history buff. When we travel to Italy or we travel the world, she is always looking for historic areas. If we're on the mainland, she's always looking for a historic home. And I used to dread that. I used to be like, oh man, we got to go see another old house. But now she's got me like so into it because I see the bigger picture now. If there were like one thing people don't know about Monica Angela Kawakami is that one, she's a public school teacher. Two, she loves history. And three, she has the gift of having this intuition of reading people and reading people's talent and their abilities. Yeah, she's cool. Yeah, she's strict as hell though. She don't give me an inch. She holds me accountable and she teaches our daughter, and this is important for people with daughters and girls, she teaches our daughter to know her worth so that will not take her cheap and she won't accept that. So I give her that. And sometimes moms are the ones that have to teach girls that.
Do you have a story about that?
Oh yeah. If I talk to my wife in a way that a man shouldn't speak to a lady, she will bark right back to me. And especially if it's a friend of my daughter, and she will like make me regret that I talked to her like you know what I mean, like less than a gentleman. Like she'll do it like on the spot. If we're like in public, she'll be like, don't you ever talk to me. And I'm like, babe, we're like in the mall. Well, don't talk to me like that out here. If you don't want me to like, she takes corrective action like immediately. And my daughter is there to see it, and I'm happy because as a dad, like I get it, and like as a man, like, hey, sometimes I'm excitable. I don't mean to be disrespectful, right? But like, I get it, She's a straight shooter. Yeah. But for most people, she's a little reserved. She's very shy. People may read that as like being aloof, but most people that like get to know her, like I think they want to be around her because like once she opens up, because right, she's guarded, and she's very protective of her family. And she's very protective of who can come in and out like of like that close-knit circle. But once she trusts you and loves you and she opens up, she's one of the most fun like people to be around, and I'm lucky. you know, because she protects our family, she protects our household, she teaches our daughter right, and yet she makes me love life. Like I love cruising with her, you know. Like we still have fun at our age. We're still very much into like the night scene, you know, when we can. We still show up to like Club Kenji, a little pop-up club at a burger spot on the south side of Poipu, because there's really nothing to do, right? As far as like if you want to dance, and we'll still show up, and there'll be like students that she taught, and we really don't care. We really don't feel like, oh, we're the old, you know, uncle, auntie, like what it is. We don't care. We don't care what people think about us, because we're in our own moment, and we're enjoying each other, and we're enjoying the company that's enjoying our company. And that's the way life should be. People should be comfortable in their own skin, and they should have fun. Don't let people ruin a good time. Screw it. Just dance, you know. If you like surf, go, you know. But find time for joy, whatever which way it may be.
What was the hardest thing you've ever had to do as mayor?
Oh, the hardest things about anything, especially like being mayor or in life, is always internal. It's always me. I'm the biggest challenge. And I say that because, like, you know, there's some times where, like, there's a few times where I kind of popped off at somebody. You know, there's a time where, like, you know, in COVID, you know, I wake up early to go surf, right? I mean, I get it in before the rest of the day because I take care of, like, the thing that makes me happy, and I'm good. And I can remember just kind of feeling like I'm getting tested.
You mean in the lineup?
Not like in the parking lot,
Oh.
but like, you know, in an almost passive aggressive way. The feeling you get like when some younger person is trying to like be cute or flex or whatever it is. And, you know, in my head, I'm like, yeah, take the high road. And, you know, but then, you know, at the moment, you know, I'm a local boy, you know, I'm like, wait, like sample. And you're like, huh? I mean, I know what you're doing, you know, like get your friends over there and, you know, like try sample. And he's like, oh, as the mayor, you think you should be like talking to, you know, like I pay, you know, your salary, you know, you work for me. I'm like, I don't work for you. I work for the people of Kauai. You know, I said, but at the heart of it, bro, I'm just a local boy. You know, I just me. I just trying to surf. I was super nice to you. But then I smoothed it over, and like, that really bothered me, you know, because I had a choice to make. And I knew I had a choice to make. Because in my head, I had a voice telling me, bro, just take the high road, play dumb, laugh it off, and move on. But in that moment, I chose to go a different way. And what it was for, probably ego, right? Probably something like immature, like, oh, like
Or I had
preserving
plenty
my
stress
manhood.
during COVID. I mean,
I
that
mean,
was
but you know
choke
what? To tell you
stress.
the truth, like
Yeah.
as stressful as it was, there was never a moment where I felt like it was like unbearable. Like there was never a moment where I felt like the entire day was just like pressure. And I gotta credit my team. Like I am lucky because throughout the course of my entire life, I've been lucky to have been surrounded by some of the most sincere, hardworking, self-driven, and I gotta tell you, like my team on Kauai, the folks that like work for the people of Kauai, my department heads, deputies, and not even like just that core leadership team, but guys working behind the counter, folks that are in the roads with their pulling their bootstraps on, fixing our roads. Like, I feel like beyond having a group of very competent, driven, self-motivated people, they care. They care deeply about the island, and I feel like they care deeply about me. And I feel like, you know, that I almost had like a force field of all these folks. And because of them and my wife, my daughter, and the people that were around me, we got through some challenging times without me ever feeling that I was alone. I mean, there were moments where it was lonely. And when you're a decision maker and you're making decisions, especially for that period of time where I kind of was battling Governor E and just creating havoc and saying, we're doing our own thing. You know what I mean? Like, we don't agree. Let us call our own audibles. Omaha, like Kauai is going, you know, we're going left. I never did feel like I was alone. And a lot of it is because of these folks that show up to work every day that like care, because they got young kids too, or they're just like driven, and they're like batteries, you know what I mean? Like when they're around, I feel driven, I feel alive, and I feel when I gotta make those hard calls that I'm not making them on my own. Like I have a good team that gets me good information, and you're never going to have all of the information. The art of leadership and making executive level decisions is being able to make a decision with 70% of the available information and making a call. And that's what we did real good at, making calls. And if we were wrong, never work out. We got to try something else. But we never beat ourselves up too much about it. We learned from it, picked ourselves up, and just kept on going. And those guys and that team made my time as mayor so meaningful. And I owe a lot to them. Yeah.
What even made you want to be mayor?
I don't know, because I didn't even want to get into elected office. I grew up skateboarding, right? And the area where we skateboard, we used to have like Jams, Big Save, right? It was like a commercial retail center, which is now like my office is there. And that's back in the 90s when skateboarding is not a crime and cops would chase us, right? You had like hip hop groups, like, you know, like anti-police sentiment, which like, you know, I love cops now. But back then it was like anti-establishment. We were a counterculture and like we were like, you know, against the system. And so I remember just getting chased away from that area. We ended up skating in underground parking lots, and we have a number of them, like in our backyard in Lihue. We got the plantation building, you know, the old credit union building. And so we would go on these underground parking lots because like out of sight, out of mind. But you know who else is in underground parking lots? Like older people that were putting things in our hands at an age that we should have never been exposed to. And that stuck with me. So like one of the first things I did when I got into office is kind of like a, you know, back to the system is I built a little skate park next to our office for all those kids that got chased away, to let them kind of know like, hey, we care about you, but don't screw it up. I think the most important thing that people got to realize is how important their participation is in the direction that our state, your community, your island goes. And I'll tell you why. One of the first interactions I had as mayor is I was coming back from a meeting, and where my office is, there's a railing, right? And I'm walking up to my office and I'm noticing a congregation of like these young moms just waiting and huddled outside my office door. And so I walk up and I say hi, and I recognize a lot of them. And I'm like, oh, you guys waiting for something? Or they're like, oh, we were waiting for you. And I was like, really? Like, how long? And they were waiting for like an hour and a half, just waiting. I said, you guys didn't want to like make an appointment or come inside? They're like, no, we went inside, but your office said that you stepped away, but that you're going to be back. And I'm like, do they know you're waiting? They're like, we don't know. We've just been waiting out here talking story. So I said, hold on a second. So I go in, I check in with the office. I'm like, these ladies have been waiting. And they're like, yeah, they've been waiting for you. I said, oh, what's my day look like? Oh, you got like an hour. So I said, you know what, come on in. These were a group of moms that were willing to wait for me till the cows came home to tell me that they have children that feel like they don't fit in, and there's no playground on the island where the children that they have feel like they're a part of the gang. And I was like, well, tell me more. All of these moms had kids with autism. And if you have an autistic child, or if you have a family member with autism, there are certain things that can trigger like behavior. And so I told them, explain it to me. And so they explained that their kids are like every other kid. They want to play and they want to be accepted. But the playground equipment that we have does not attract their kids. In fact, it makes them not want to be a part of it. And so I said, well, let us take a look into it. And it really hit my heartstrings. And I think a lot of our experience and who we are today starts like when you're a kid. Because when I was going through high school, one of my jobs I had was I was an after-school aide at A+ at Wilcox School. And I don't even know if they still allow high school kids like to have supervision over kids. Pretty much unsupervised, because I can tell you, I like senior year, 10th grade year, I had one kid assigned to me. His name was Justin Bolosan. And he had tremendous abilities, but it required one-on-one. And it really, at a young age, made me appreciate, like, you know, like how healthy I was. Like senior year, I had another kid that was assigned to me. His name was David. And unfortunately, his mom had addiction problems, and he was born at the peak of her addiction, and he had all of the unintended consequences that come with addiction during pregnancy, and he required one-on-one. And it made me like really realize that these folks are vulnerable and they're falling through the cracks. And going through and working big, say one of our best grocery clerks, Iggy, you know, he's deaf, but he is a rock star. He's our best grocery clerk. And it really highlighted that, hey, look, there's tremendous ability, but we just have to create an environment where they can thrive. And so we tasked our Parks and Rec director with doing the research and working with these group of moms to build them a playground where their kids could feel like they're a part of the gang. And we built our very first inclusive playground at Kamalani, right next to the other playground. And it had all of like the playground equipment that can accommodate a kid in a wheelchair. It was very sensitive to sensory stimulus. So like for kids with autism, it wasn't equipment that would scare them away, but in fact would like attract them. And it became the most like popular playground like on the island. And when we went out there, we saw all kinds of just kids all playing there, and it was the most heartwarming thing. And it was all started because these moms found it important enough to fight for their kids and bring it to our attention. And if they hadn't brought it to our attention, I can almost guarantee you we would have gone by oblivious that this is even an issue. And so after that one, you know, we're doing one, you know, on West Kauai. We're going to try to do another one central in Lihue, but hopefully with a new administration coming in, that they see the value of this and it builds momentum. Same like skate parks. You know, during COVID, we used that period to renovate the Brian J. Baptiste skate park. You know, they had a skate park, but whoever designed it, you know, things evolve. Kids want different things. We're able to renovate that skate park, and there was friction. You know, that at one point, like the softball, like the park users were battling. They were like, you know, calling my office. We had softball coaches, you know, youth baseball coaches, youth basketball saying, hey, Mayor, bro, these kids, they're skating. Like, you know, like they're hanging out in the dugout, you know, like they're not respectful. So I said, okay, come on, let's all go there. So I called Kauai Skate Ohana, you know, the nonprofit org that I said, hey, you got to help me regulate because we're taking a risk. We called all the different park users and we had kuka in the pavilion. And I remember Danny Oliveira, bless his heart, you know, he's a guy I grew up with. He's a police officer. He showed up even just to like, you know, like show support. And little did I know though, that weekend when he was going to go Koke, that was the last time I was going to see him because he suffered a massive heart attack. And that's like the frailty of life and why you always got to like embrace these interactions and just like leave people in a good space and don't leave the house mad because it might be our last breath, but just to like love life. But, you know, understanding how I felt as a kid getting chased away, we told all the park users, like, look, we got to coexist. You know, the reason why all these kids are coming, because this is the only skate park on the island. You can imagine if we only had one basketball court. And you guys are like calling other communities that we want to build skate parks and telling, well, don't let the mayor do it. I said, you guys should be out there telling these guys, oh, bro, it's the best thing. Tell them build skate parks everywhere so we can spread that crowd out. I said, imagine if we only had one baseball field. You know, these kids only have one skate park. You guys should support it. And at that moment, and I mean, you're going to have beefs amongst park users nonetheless. People got to learn how to share. But it changed, I think, the way people viewed those kids. And I think it opened up their eyes to realize, like, oh, yeah, that is true. If we only had one basketball court, we'd have 100 people trying to play basketball. Of course, they would be all over the creation. And, you know, it's the personal stories that, like, that make me smile that we're able to actually make things happen, you know, that really, I mean, it drives you. And to see that change happen.
So do they have more skate parks now in Kauai?
Yeah, so we're building another one. We're building, and what we did is we put up like pop-up skate parks, right?
Oh.
So like in areas that we felt like, hey, we could have a skate park, what we did is we put like a half pipe and a mini pipe, you know what I mean? And we told kids go skate there. At our civic center, I had to tell KPD and the security, like, hey, I told these kids, like after work, like 4:30 on, hey, they can just skate around the area. Weekends, when we're not in work, Let them go. As long as they're not like doing anything dangerous or like, doing anything unlawful, let them go. And so like we started putting in like mini ramps and half pipes like next to basketball courts. Cause I said it would be a dream of mine to see a skate park or something small for skaters anywhere that there's a pickleball court and a basketball court, because those kids matter too. And by the way, it's an Olympic sport. So it's legit. And our kids from Hawaii are amazing. And if we create an environment where they can thrive, they'll take it to the next level. Athletically, we compete with the best. And I think a lot of it is because people from the islands have this warrior, scrappy spirit that's ingrained in their DNA. That's why our MMA fighters, like, they fight to the death. Like, Max Holloway, BJ Penn, all of the guys that represent Hawaii, like, they make a mark on all the competitors, because I think there's something about living on an island that, like, you got a little scrap in you, and those kids are worth scrapping for. So now we got one coming up in Hanapepe. We have plans for one at Nawili Wili. We got to go Lomi Lomi and like talk story with the business owners around that area, because again, they're looking at skaters as like punks. And I'm personally offended, because I'm telling these skater kids, like, yeah, I'm a skater. You could be mayor too one day. I'm trying to get them to believe. And in order for them to believe, I got to get people to stop judging them just because they look different. Kids are kids, and we got to it takes a village to raise a child, and parents are busy. Some are working 2 or 3 jobs. So some of the parenting and tough love got to happen, at the parks. The coaches got to take a bigger role, I think, not just teaching them, how to win games and win championships, but how to be champions, and I forget even what the question is. I don't know how I deviated onto this path.
It was like why you wanted to be mayor anyways.
Oh yeah, I never did. In my neighborhood, like, you had Senate president like up the street, and it's cute because like his kids would come visit. Our Dalmatian Pepper up the street. I had Representative Ezra Kanoho, Chair Kaipoa Singh, Judge Valenciano down the street, but I never viewed elected officials as like somebody I wanted to be like, and I never looked at government. I think it was because coming up through the grocery business was super hard to survive. I never viewed our government as caring or working for like people my age or people like me. I just felt like disconnected. And the reason why I got involved is because Senator Danny Noy, who is like a family member to us through Uncle George, wanted to get younger people involved because he had a concern that young people were like not getting involved. And so they approached me to help out with his campaign. I said I was going to think about it. My dad hit me on the side of the head, said, what are you thinking about? When Senator, he tells you he wants your help, you tell him, yes, sir. And so I jumped in. I learned.
How old were you?
Late 20s. So from that, Mayor Baptiste and Johnny Sobe put me on the Charter Commission. From the Charter Commission, I'm running for KIUC, which is our electric utility co-op, which has an elected board of directors because we are a non-for-profit co-op, so members own our utility. And then ran for council, got appointed to the state house. And it kind of like, as all of these things were happening, it changed my view on elected officials. And the more I got to work with them and hear like, them as just people, and not just like what you see on the news, it made me realize like a lot of these guys actually care. Like they care deeply, but it's hard to make the kind of changes that people expect. And I think it's hard to make those changes because the big changes are oftentimes unpopular decisions. And by nature of it, we got to win popularity contests to get elected. And if you start just making popular decisions that people are like, oh, he's trying, nothing really changes. And so I got to realize that these people that are judging actually care deeply, and that there were ways within the system that you could actually like help. And I think it was just a natural progression. I started really loving what I did, but I was never satisfied with the legislative branch. I never was satisfied that it was so hard to make things happen and that you needed other people to vote along. You know what I mean? And all of the debate and just, oh my God, it was like nails scratching a chalkboard. they were all very meaningful in my education system, going to the House of Representatives and drinking water from a fire hydrant and learning so much from who I would call icons like Speaker Say, Joe Suki, Cliff Suji, Ken Ito, I mean, Bob Herkes, I mean, and me coming in and these guys still being around and them being in a part of their career where they're looking like to pass on knowledge if you're willing to listen. I made the most of it. But I knew from my time at Big Save that I wanted to be in operations, that I needed to be on the administrative side. And so I jumped into that mayor's race and got into office. And I can remember like the first day, like being kind of anxiety filled because, oh, you're showing up to the first day after all the pomp and circumstance of putting your hand on a Bible, taking the oath of office, and like, and then the celebration is done. You wake up the next morning like, oh, I gotta go work. And I haven't even asked questions like, what does a mayor do on day one? And like, have like, am I supposed to? And so my wife is getting ready for work, and I'm getting ready for my first day. And she's like, are you excited? I'm like, I'm scared. And she's like, why? I'm like, because I don't know what I'm supposed to do at the first day as mayor. Like, what are the expectations? Am I supposed to go down to the DMV and say, hello, my friends, my dear friends, the people, you know, like, what am I supposed to do? And she goes, I don't know, read the employee handbook. Like, employee handbook, she goes, yeah, new hires, they get orientation and employee handbook. I said, they don't have a handbook for mayors. She goes, then you better write one. And right there, I know what she was telling me. She was saying, but there's no handbook for the job that you're going to do. So you go and define it and you go make it yours and you go show people that there's a different way to lead, and don't let the title change you. Always be you and go ahead and write the handbook to being a mayor. And you know what? That little back and forth with my wife stuck with me. And I made the most of it. We definitely did things differently. I definitely feel I've been able to stay true to myself and be unapologetically honest with people and still maintain like what's important to me and not really worry about like how I'm being judged. You know, not really worry if I'm on a dance floor and people are looking at me and like, oh, how's this guy? You know, like he, you know, just not worrying. There's one thing that happens when you get really good at not really letting what people think about you impact what your mission is and where you're going to go and how you feel about yourself. And that is so important for people to understand, to be comfortable in their own skin, to accept themselves, and to not let other people's judgment weigh in onto how you're going to be moving through life. And I hope if there's anything I can do is to make people feel comfortable when I'm in a room with them, you know. And I remember Harry Kim telling me that. Harry Kim tells me, what keeps you up at night? And I was with Mike DeHilig, you know, in his office. And I'm like, oh my God, where does it start and where does it end? I worried about all the roads I got to fix. I worried about like building affordable housing. I worried about all the parks that like we got to maintain. I worried about like, are we going to have enough revenue to, you know, fulfill people's growing expectations? And I feel like this is the first time in a long time that our generation has an opportunity to lead. That's a lot of weight on my shoulders because if I screw this up, I'm going to ruin it for everybody else that's down waiting, you know, in the pipeline, you know, waiting to make their jump up. So I feel a tremendous amount of obligation and pressure. And he looked at me, he goes, oh, nobody's going to remember that. Nobody going to remember the road you fixed. Nobody going to remember if the parks was good when you was mayor. Nobody going to remember if you built housing for people that need housing. Over time, people only going to remember how you made them feel and if they could trust you. And right there, it reprioritized what my top priorities were going to be. We're going to be honest with people. We're going to put our best effort in. But if at the end of the day, we couldn't get things done, we'll just let them know, hey, we tried, but, you know, cannot. And I've had to say no more than I've had to say yes. And I feel that is the correct way to do the job as mayor because people are coming to you with all kinds of requests. And most of the times, the right answer is like, oh, bro, I cannot do that. I'm not going to even try to look because I'm going to be wasting steps, but there's, you know, there's big trouble. Like, cannot. And there's something very, like I said, liberating about accepting that truth, especially when you take a job like this. One, we're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. So we're going to just have our own identity, the one that's true, and we're going to embrace that. Two, we're going to give our best effort. Screw excellence. You know, at first I said, hey, we're striving for excellence. I'm like, who am I kidding? We government. Like, you know, like we're going to give our best effort. And if I see you guys like just going all out, hey, that's what I want to see. And maybe we might hit excellence here and there. But like I said, we got too many constraints, too many bureaucratic red tape, too many policies we put in front of ourselves to really be able to move as quickly as people expect. And, you know, that it is what it is.
What made you decide or want to become lieutenant governor?
I've always, like, from becoming mayor, where I really feel like, oh, this is what I was born for. This is the part of governance, like, and leadership that, like, I feel like I was born for. Like, this is my comfort zone. And from there, and that happened really quickly from, you know, jumping in, like being the actual mayor, I realized very quickly, this is what I want to do. Like, this is it. And I've always been looking to serve on many different levels. And it's always been in the back of my mind that I do want to see how far, like, we can take it. And so that lieutenant governor's seat was always the next logical and the one that was pulling at my heartstrings, because in all honesty, like I said, the legislative side is great. It's important. It's not my cup of tea. That's not where my happy place is. Being dealt with the big challenges and having to be making big decisions and being held accountable for those decisions, that's the sort of exhilaration and gets my heart beating. And so, you know, that lieutenant governor's position was a next step that I saw that I wanted to be in one day. And for a little while, I kind of was losing hope, because in this day, you lose relevance and momentum like in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? Like, if I am not relevant immediately, you get forgotten real quick. When you're out, you're out. It's kind of cruel in that way, but I've seen it happen to so many elected officials. Hey, when you're out, you got to be at peace with, like, you're not relevant anymore. And so you got to have your core circle that is your ride or dies, because those are going to be the people that are going to be around when you're not there. But, like, I view it as like jiu-jitsu, right? You don't go from like white belt and then putting on one brown belt, right? You go like white to blue, you know, purple to
And that
brown
takes a long time.
to black. And that, the jump from like white to blue is like long. You know, I'm still like lifelong blue, you know, like, I've been training for years, and I'll die a blue belt because I no more the time and the commitment to do what's necessary to get to that purple. Because from blue to purple,
That's long too.
it's long, you know. And so I feel, you know, that every step of the way has been methodical and has added value to who I want to be in the future. And I really feel that all the experience that I bring has gotten me ready to just throw my name into that hat and then, like, hopefully win and get into that seat to really be able to try to define what that lieutenant governor's office does and what a lieutenant governor looks like, how they talk and how they treat people and where they mingle at, and just, like, you know, and just be real, you know, still showing up in the lineup, you know, talking about issues, telling guys like, hey, I know he's surfing, but if you talk to me about like issues, I can almost write this off as work, you know, so like talk to me, you know. And that's what I like to do. Like, you know, I go out there and they're like, oh, I don't like bother you when you're surfing, but I want to be bothered. Like, you know, I coming out here because I know you guys don't show up to meetings. I know most of you guys don't even vote, but, you know, this is my community. Like, this is my tribe, and I want you guys to feel comfortable, and I want to be approachable enough that you can paddle up to me and say, hey, bro, you know, I give them a big pothole in front of my house. It's been there for like 5 years, you know, like, what, you can look at it, you know. That's where I like to be. I want to have people feel comfortable coming up to me, and even if they don't know me, and just talking to me about what's on their mind. That's what I get paid for.
Was there a point where it was like a turning point from just kind of fooling around when I'm younger to, okay, I'm now serious? Was it oh, you got to go Army? That point? Or?
No, not even, because I was still fooling around, right? Like Chaminade, like, you know, like man. If I didn't have Monica, like, I don't know if people realize the impact that woman has made in my life, just from like not giving up. She has like an ability to see things that most people cannot see, and to hear things that are not spoken, but to have this intuition on things, even like some, like, oh, you should kind of watch that guy. Not, I don't know what it is, but I don't have a good feeling. And more often than not, like, her instincts are true. And she has seen something in me and believed in me more than I actually believed in myself. And like every step of the way, she's encouraged it. She's even almost like pushed, you know, like even the lieutenant governor's race, like from way before, she was already saying that, hey, you know what? Your time as mayor is ending. If you're serious about running for lieutenant governor, you're gonna have to make a call. Like, you're gonna have like that uncomfortable reality of like running against somebody that you worked with, somebody that has helped you, you know, meaning running up against an incumbent. Because, oh, if people are telling you, hey, in 4 years, like, we're gonna be behind you, and
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, and they bench you, oh, in 4 years, none of those folks are gonna be around because you're not gonna be relevant. And when you're out, you're out. And that was a hard thing for me to hear because it was the truth. And it was a hard thing for me to accept, because I think inside I'm like, what? People kind of forget about me, right? Like, I worked hard, I did good. Like, we wrote the handbook on how to be a different mayor, and that means just like, you know, you be you. And nah, people still remember me. And she was insistent. People's attention span has shortened so much that I can't even get people to pay attention more than a minute. And she's true. And so already I was coming and having that internal conversation, that conversation when you look in the mirror, like, what are you going to do? What do you stand for? What is your identity, and what is your plan? And do you have the courage to go up and run against an incumbent? And like more and more it was building, and then an opportunity opened up and I jumped on it. And it's like surfing. The guy that gets the wave of the day is usually not the best surfer. It's just the guy that is like in the right place at the right time, and he sees that wave, and whether he's going to have the courage to turn and paddle and just go over that ledge, and, you know, whatever happens happens, but just goes for it. And making a split second decision sometimes is the biggest difference. And I saw that wave coming, and I spun, and I paddled my heart out. And I'm still dropping in, and I'm still trying to find out, am I going to come out of this barrel and just claim it as the wave of the day, or am I going to wipe out? But right now I'm doing everything I can to come out of that barrel and claim the wave of the day. And I'm having a great time along the way doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Meeting people like you, going from island to island, hearing the different challenges that people are facing, and looking at what the common denominators are. And what I'm hearing, the biggest thing is people are worried about housing. And it's not just young people. You know, now it's people, a lot of people that already have homes, the parents, grandparents that are worried about their kid and their grandkids. It's now a top priority for them. The cost of living, you know, with this conflict in Iran, with tariffs, the price of oil going up. Yeah, I can barely put gas in my gas tank to get to work. I'm making decisions on whether or not I get my kid nice shoes, or are they going to get teased because it's all puka, or am I going to pay my utility bill? And then just the quality of life. There's a lot of people that have been here for like generations that are slowly feeling like this is not the Hawaii like that they grew up with. That there's, you know, that aloha still matters. That your leaders have to be leading by example and showing grace and having empathy. And the most important thing, you know, not making somebody lose face. You know, going back to my childhood, my mom had 3 boys. She grew up like with rough brothers, and she was a firm believer. And I do not recommend this now in this day and age. But when we came, our first fist fight was because our mom said, hey, I never raised you guys to get picked on. You go back there and you go, you know, you go punch this kid, you know. And like she taught us, she dropped us off at our first fight and said, I'm not going to let you guys get stepped on. But she taught us how to hit above the belt and be fair. And the most important thing is she said, if you win, you better not like make that guy lose face. If you tear down his dignity and take away his ability to go home to his family, you're in big trouble. And that was an important value in Hawaii, is we can disagree, but what separates us from the rest of the world is our ability to keep somebody's dignity intact. And what I hear from going to community is all of that. Housing, cost of living, the quality of life, and then being able to maintain what is most important to Hawaii, our way of life, being able to like catch fish when we go fishing, be able to find a parking when the waves are pumping, you know what I mean? And not have like tourists occupy every stall. You know, the simple things in life, being able to disagree civilly without people being so nasty, you know, and those are all things that hit me in the heartstrings because it's basic. It's not that complicated. And these are a lot of the issues that a lot of people from Kona all the way up to Ke'e are talking about. And gosh, it's a great journey. This is a big, huge campaign, the biggest one, but the one that I feel like I'm enjoying the most. Even though it's a sprint, even though I'm learning as I go along, because like I said, it's way different campaigning on Kauai than statewide. But I feel like I was built for this. I feel like in this kind of environment, I'm a better person and I thrive. And I feel like even though I'm burning the candle at both ends, like just people recharge my social battery, you know? Because coming here, I was like super tired. I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe like Joey and Sarah like put me up to this because I'm tired. I was up from like 3:30 in the morning yesterday, flying out to Hilo and just like blitzing all the way from Waimea, Parker Ranch, all the way to Hilo, Keokaha, jumping on a plane today, barely making it to the gate, getting in, attending a medical readiness military change of command in a suit and in the blazing hot sun because whoever had laid out the chairs put all the dignitaries like under the tent, but not deep enough, so we're like getting blazed on. I feel bad for like the other people. Me, I'm used to the sun, and then like having to go to like Pacific Club and like finding a shower, throwing this on, and coming here, and then Joy saying, "Hey, you hungry?" And I look at him like, "Bro, I'm super hungry. But if I eat now, I'm probably gonna be dozing off." And then coming here and just having your energy rebuild minds is exhilarating. It's fun. This is like my happy place. In a competition, in a race, fighting for something we believe in and fighting not for like about who's in this race, but it's about the people we're fighting for, the Hawaii we're fighting for. That fires me up. And I don't want to smile too much, but like it's hard not to smile. I love this.
If people listen to the first part of our conversation, go, "Oh, Derek, he was a troublemaker or whatever when he was younger and so on.
I'm still a troublemaker.
How can this guy run the state?" How would you answer that?
Oh man, you know, I think I am reflective of most people in Hawaii. You know, I am not squeaky clean. I am rather average. I'm not really excellent at any one thing, but I can do like a lot of things and figure things out. But I think everything that has happened, the bad times, some of the things I shouldn't have done, have given me a skill set to, one, to be relatable, but two, to be able to relate to other people that are struggling. You know, to be able to look at that, like that person who doesn't have a house because he's got a substance, you know, abuse problem or an addiction or alcoholism, to be able to like have some empathy, to be a little bit more understanding. And I'm still a work in progress. You know, like I said, like I'm still gonna look in the mirror and say, oh man, you know, did I do my very best at being a good representative of our community, our island, and our people? And that's the mindset I have, is the minute that I became an elected official, and it took me a while to realize it, but especially when I became mayor, yeah, I'm no longer representing Derek Kawakami. I'm not behaving like how I want to behave. Yeah, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to surf. I'm going to dance because I love dancing. I love live music. But I am now representing a community, an island, and people, and there's a level of diplomacy. But if people are wondering how can this guy from a small island be able to lead and govern, give me a chance and let me show you. Let me show you a different way of leadership, and I'll gladly step up to the challenge. Because people that have said, he's too young to be mayor, He's going to have his turn. Those are the people that really fire me up to just be better. And so anybody that has questions about ability, give me a shot and let me show you. I really feel like this is what I'm born for. And like, I'm not going to be perfect, but I think what I'm good at is attracting talented people that are smarter, more capable, have better subject matter expertise in, what the job is. Being able to create a culture of, hey, let's take these calculated risks. Government are not risk takers. They want to stay in their comfort zone. But in order to move things, like, hey, we're going to have to take some well thought out, calculated risks. And I'm good at creating that kind of work environment that lets people have the latitude to try new things and to come up with different solutions. And I think we have a lot to talk about on Kauai, where we kind of went out of the box to address something, figured out like, hey, this works, and this could work statewide. Whether it was housing, addressing how we're going to fund affordable housing, transparency in budgeting, communication on many different levels. Yeah, I can't wait. But it's a lot of work getting there, and we're willing to put in the work to get there.
Was there anything that we didn't cover today you think you wanted to cover?
No, I mean, we're at a crossroads right now, I feel. I feel like young people and young kids are at a lack of having true role models. When I take a look at like where they're finding their heroes or what they're being exposed to, and even looking at how elected officials just like talk to each other, I feel like there's a different way. And I really feel we have to get back on path to be good role models and good examples, and to have bold leadership that's willing to make those unpopular decisions and stand behind them to move this state and our people forward. And I feel like I would love to have the opportunity to be that person. And yeah, I think we covered a lot.
Well, I appreciate your time.
No,
I know
thank
you're
you.
busy. I know you're tired, but
I'm not tired, actually.
Huh?
Like, cool. I feel like, time went by fast, actually, and yeah, I'm the most talkative Japanese person you ever gonna meet in your life. My wife would say, if we were in the ancient times, like, you had hunters and gatherers, she said, you'd be the guy around the fire, making sure the fire not go out, and just telling tales, talking story, and that's what it is.
That person's
Yeah,
important. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you for everything you're doing. Good luck.
Thank you. I want people to feel comfortable, be themselves, love other people, and be positive.
If you resonate with Greater Good Radio, please join our community at www.greatergoodradio.com, where you can get access to exclusive content and offerings. Hope to see you soon.